Okay, let's try that. Okay, well, maybe Miriam, you'd like to say how that helped her, the paramptryphyllin.
What I think, I don't know if you remember, but as soon as she got that, we started with the nose, we tried with the nose, and there was, but at the time, I remember thinking, I don't think she likes LMs because she just doesn't like those liquids. So we went for dry and went for 200. And that's when suddenly she decided she wanted to go back to her dance classes and her swimming. She's a very strong swimmer actually. And so, hey, this is good.
If you can speak up a bit so we can.
So now she's, she does have dance classes.
She wanted to be more social. She didn't want to be sociable originally. She wanted to be sociable. She wanted her friends. She wanted to join these classes.
Exactly.
So the stammer was helped.
The stammer is, it helps. Her speech, I mean, she doesn't speak more, but when she does, there is one thing that I'm noticing, that her speech maybe as well, the impediment is that she doesn't breathe properly.
Yeah.
So when she speaks, she just holds on to her breath rather than breathe out whilst talking. And I think that is now more, that's something that's come back.
Good.
So that's one thing that I may not have told you right now.
That's good.
And I think that the swimming is hopefully helping her, because that's where her coach is actually working on, because it is affecting the swimming as well. So the breathing, she doesn't have a how would you call it? The breathing going with the.
I think also wasn't there something about she felt more confident about performing or dancing or something or.
Oh yes, because next week her dance class is actually performing.
Yeah.
In school.
So it's not it probably is a little more subtle, but still quite noticeable improvements, and beyond what had been achieved before anyway. So I think it's a useful remedy for these kind of cases. And I think if you get them picking their nose or picking, that's quite a good keynote for this remedy, which is quite common as well. So, okay, this is another case. This is actually another one of our members, but she's not here today. I've changed the name of her daughter. A very unusual autism case. This was quite interesting for me as well. So, first of all, she was brought in, they came to see me, the mum and the daughter who's 26, not a child. She came in. Why are we here? I didn't want to come. I never wanted to come. Why are you giving him all that money? He doesn't deserve it. We're paying far too much. Oh, this is going on. Mum's going. So that was kind of an interesting start. Scowling, interrupting constantly with, she was very resentful. Sulky, cutting remarks. Her mother was kind, patient, visibly embarrassed, trying to smooth things over while absorbing the hostility. Before the consultation, her mother warned me, you may get some hospitality, not hospitality. She's furious that her PIP, which is her insurance, some kind of insurance, is being used to pay you and thinks you're too expensive. She holds on to old hurts and suddenly brings them back just when we think they've resolved. On her birthday, the family couldn't all be together to sing happy birthday on a video call. Her sisters made cakes, rang her, went out of their way, but the absence of that single ritual became a fixed grievance she could not let go of. Another loss, but hurt deeply, a close friend. So she's also, when she was born, she had neurofibromatosis, is it called? Where there's something about the join of the skull is not correct. And so the tongue and the mouth she can't speak properly. She has great difficulty speaking. And sometimes it's difficult to know what she's saying. She's like slurs or garbled words, so it's difficult sometimes to know what she's saying. A close friend had died by suicide 18 months earlier. First death in her peer group. Another friend had also attempted suicide, and they were sort of held inside. Diagnosed 3 years ago with autism, neurofibromatosis type 1.
She was diagnosed at age 23.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. She was home educated, unvaccinated, breastfed until 4 and had no vitamin K at birth. Her speech was almost unintelligible, and my speech as well, unintelligible until the age of 9. Coordination was poor, jaw and tongue never quite worked together. She was jittery as a newborn and for years had a visible seam down the midline of her face, which only resolved after osteopathic treatment. She woke angry as a child. Family members would draw straws over who had to wake her if they needed to leave early. She had severe leg and abdominal pains for years, which only improved when wheat and grains were removed. She forgets to eat until she becomes angry, has little awareness of temperature, modesty or bodily signals. She is profoundly untidy. Her bedroom floor functions as wardrobe and bin. Yet she works in a job cleaning accommodation in a kind of hotel or a motel or Butlins or something like a holiday camp, I think it is, and complains bitterly about the state others leave their rooms in. She lives almost entirely in her room, resists family meals, but then complains about being excluded. I mean, really sulky. She's really, life has not been kind to her, and to a degree one can understand. I mean, the mum was so bending over backwards to be kind to her, She is fiercely loyal, deeply moral, and always on the side of the underdog. As an 11-year-old, she joined youth theatre. No one spoke to her for a year, but she kept going. Eventually, she was given a single line in a workshop. She spoke it, and something shifted. Others began to include her. She shows the same pattern in adult life. She turns up for work even when ill, because she won't let people down, yet feels unrecognised and exploited. Authority irritates her, unfairness enrages her. At home, anger erupts physically, throwing things, barging into siblings, storming off, followed by retreat. Sleep is chaotic, phone on all night, and early evening collapse, waking exhausted. She complains constantly of being tired, unheard, held back, yet rejects help, misses appointments and does not follow through on plans. Her world is intensely sensory and symbolic. She loves horror films, heavy metal, goth. She looks a bit gothic, goth culture, Fascinated by snakes, reptiles, cats, bats. Daydreams, zones out, struggles to articulate what she wants. Speech remains fast, slurred, poorly modulated. High pain tolerance, poor bodily boundaries. Mum micromanages her life. She says we don't care, but she doesn't reply to messages. Her sisters wonder why they include her. Now, at first I thought, I gave Cerea serpentina, and that helped a little bit, but it didn't give me the shift that I was looking for. And then so I use ChatGPT to kind of bounce ideas backwards and forwards. So I put the case notes into ChatGPT and I said, I'm thinking of a fern here. And what came back was, no, Jonathan. It's not a fern. It's a reptile. You could have said, you idiot, I mean, I've never had that before or since, actually. It was so adamant. And then I looked and I thought, oh my God, it's right. It is a reptile. And I remembered then, I'd seen a case of chameleon, and I then I looked at that and I thought, and when you think about it, just think, she had a line down the front of her face. There were all kinds of, tongue is not properly controlled or contained. You think of the tongue of the chameleon that you know, and throwing out the tongue. You know, she throws out sort of vindictive, sulky remarks, curt, cutting, you know. And I thought that's the remedy. Didn't work. No, it did. So that's a lovely picture. Yeah. And then that's, in a way, she looks a bit like, I mean, not, you know, it doesn't look like that, but there's something of that quality in her, kind of, you know. This is key markers for the chameleon, from the chameleon case. Identity and position, not sensitivity. Nobody cares about me. I'm treated unfairly. I'm left out. Strong us versus them polarity. Family versus her. Staff versus guests. Authority versus the underdog. Active defence, not withdrawal. Anger, throwing, barging. You know, very quite violent in a way. Plants react, minerals doubt, animals fight for their position. This was a case about who she is in relation to others, therefore an animal. So these are some themes of chameleon. Self-rejection. It's interesting actually that she, from the notes, she doesn't feel the hot or cold. She's not sensitive to hot or cold, which would be a thing about a reptile thing. You know, they tend to be very sensitive actually, and they, need to be in the sun. Self-rejection and survival through concealment and adaptation. Profound self-disgust. So if you've got a patient that is really just, they look in the mirror and they just hate what they see. I mean, it's not just mild, but it's just a really, they feel really ugly and repulsive and wrong. Strong self-hatred, destructive inner dialogue, shame about the body, alienation from the physical self, identity feels unstable, fragmented or undefined. Daydreaming, zoning out, dissociation, gets bored quickly, disengages, loses interest, it's difficulty staying present, mind slips away from reality, poor follow through despite ideals and intentions, wants closeness but expects rejection, withdraws, hides or camouflages, she sort of retreats to her bedroom. Irritability and rage when overwhelmed or intruded upon. Sudden emotional explosions after long suppression.
So this is specific to the
Chameleon. Yeah.
So what was the reptile part that led you there, or that lecture?
It was really that I remembered this case. I remembered looking at the proving of this of chameleon, and so I re-looked at those notes, and I thought, yes, this really fits. They have it particularly as this feeling they're repulsive, and this whole thing about self-disgust, self-hatred, which really is, I think, the core of this poor woman's case. You know, really. Of course, you've got the other reptiles you've got to think about. Bufo, of course, which has the sort of they are very in touch with their basic instincts. Yeah. But it doesn't have the vitriolic, it's not a vitriolic animal, Bufo. It's more just low morality. If you think of the chameleon, like shoving, his tongue shooting out, this is more like what she's like, Feels misunderstood, talked over, overlooked, alternates between invisibility and dramatic expression. Fierce loyalty, once bonded, stands up for the underdog. So again, you see, it's about being in the right kingdom for a start. And if you look at this case, that's a good start to actually think, well, what kingdom are we in here? You know, is this a wound, a plant wound, or is it something a bit more aggressive and territorial, and you know, it's not really a mineral, I wouldn't say. So by questioning which kingdom is a good starting point, and then that narrows down the options. Survival by blending in, masking, adopting, heightened sensitivity to environment and threat. And also, she had a real thing about geckos, she told us later. She was really glad to get this remedy. And she said, I've always had a thing about geckos. I must hide who I am to survive because who I am feels unacceptable. That's the sort of essence. There we are. This is what her mum said. She's doing well. Her sisters have noticed positive changes in her moods. She doesn't explode like she used to. She's calmer, more sociable, swears less, and is better able to describe what's happening to her. Let me tell you, when she came, she actually asked to see me. And when she came back, she was on the video this time. Hello, how are you? There was none of that. She did get a little bit, I mean, she still got it a little bit in for her mum. She was still a bit like, but calmed down quite quickly. Whereas before, she spent the whole session being angry. But she got a little bit irritated by something her mum said, but then she just kind of calmed down and let it go. Better able to describe what's happening to her when she's struggling. The dark circles under her eyes are lighter. She was intrigued to be given a chameleon remedy. She grinned when she heard what it was. She's wanted a snake or gecko for years. So, isn't homeopathy wonderful? And the way we explore nature and different animals and plants, and you know, it's one of the great, you know, it's kind of fascinating, always fascinating. It's an adventure, exactly. Any questions?
Just about the swearing, because that came up there.
Sorry?
About swearing, because it came up there. Do you find that that's a kingdom thing, or do all the kingdoms swear?
I think because obviously you've got remedies like anacardium, so it does occur in plant remedies as well. I think it's the energy of the case really is what you're looking at. And you're looking at listening to some of the words that are used and getting, you know, with her it was very quite violent and quite very aggressive, you know.
You say that those represent tuberculosis, or necessarily, yeah, we have a lot of swearing in tuberculosis. I was maybe
That's a whole different kingdom, you know, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but anyway. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
I was just interested.
Yeah, okay. Now, this, oh my goodness. That's how I felt, like that woman in the centre there. So, but now this, I have to explain, this case, Stacey, Ruby, Sunny and Freddie, I've had to recently let them go because, first of all, they're all homeschooled in a very small kind of flat, I don't know how small, but quite an enclosed space. And the mum is kind of, well, it says highly driven, controlling, perfectionist, and I think she is part of I think there's a whole, there's a whole thing going on. There's all these dynamics going on. I give one remedy. This family had been treated by another homeopath. In fact, the woman whose son was the first case, she treated them and passed them on to me because she kind of got to a stage. They had loads of remedies. The woman is very interested in homeopathy, loves homeopathy, and is always recommending her friends. And is, she's a really nice person. I really liked her, very lively. But I think the picture kept changing. But so I'm going to give you some of the. There were some. I think there were some positives and some gains. So I'm giving you. This is all warts and all. It's not just. I'm not just presenting the perfect cases that sort of. But this is really demonstrating. Sometimes also it's demonstrating the idea of the dynamics within an autistic family, which can be different from normal. So if we look at this, the mum carries the entire emotional and practical load. The husband, the husband was a waste of space for a time. He didn't help out at all, didn't want to help out. She was fully having to sort of look after all these kids. However, I gave the husband, there was a sense that he didn't want to grow up, and I gave him a fern, and he completely changed. And he started helping out, at home. So that was kind of, that was a win. I gave him Felix Mass, which you may have seen listed. And in one of its themes is, they don't want to grow up.
Have you tried a genus epidemicus kind of thing? No, maybe I should have done. I don't know, but let's just go through this anyway. So, trauma history, over responsibility. I mean, she had a hell of a kind of growing up, a terrible family. Was neglected and neglect and lack of care and whatever. But very protective of her children. So there was Sonny, 6 years old. He's non-verbal, autistic, will only eat bacon. Doesn't want to sleep, goes to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, up until 2 a.m. Yeah, there we go. Wakes repeatedly in the night, which means then that Stacey doesn't get a good night's sleep, so that affects her what she's like, you see. Chronic maternal exhaustion. Then there's Freddie, 9 years old. He's autistic, but more withdrawn. He, not quite so autistic. I wouldn't say he was maybe more ADHD, if you could call him. Inwardly absorbed, sensory sensitivities, regulation, communication difficulties. There was a lot of bullying. When the kids went to school, there was bullying. Ruby is 15. Very quiet, very shy, finds it difficult to bond with other people, kind of in her own little world, very a bit floaty. Ready? Can't read my writing. Father had a one-night stand. Was aggressive and there was police involvement. Mother was in constant fear and instability, I think, during the pregnancy. Recurrent UTIs. She was on antidepressants. And mother's history of sexual abuse, trauma, alcoholism. Baby was kidnapped by the father at 5 years or 5 weeks old. And there was a court. You can see the general gist of this. And was vaccinated, delayed walking, ADHD signs, speech delay, words incomplete, severe stuttering, unable to sit still. Oh, well done here. Current state, ADHD picture, 100 miles an hour mind, jumps rapidly from topic to topic, restless, fidgeting, constant stimulation, mimics, repeats what others say, speech, dyslexia, reverses letters, very poor memory, emotional state, extremely sensitive, cries easily, tantrums, very sympathetic and caring, very restless, sleep talking, being alone. Big sugar aggravations, diarrhea, headaches, hyperactivity.
Is this the kind of cases you are seeing? Are these kind of cases you are seeing at the moment, or? Yeah. Good, right. Very affectionate and cuddly. So her previous homeopath gave these remedies, and I gave these remedies. He actually did quite well on koala. It's an interesting remedy. Do you know this remedy? Vascularctus cinereus. They're very cuddly for a start, but there's a real sense of, if you think about koalas, they have kind of flies around them. They're often surrounded by negative and criminal influences, or bad influences around them, that sort of idea. They can be heroin addicts, they could be drug addicts. That did help. TV emanation also helped. TV emanation is an interesting remedy, and it's useful to remember for some autism cases. They tend to be very blank, like staring. Imagine watching the TV like that. That's really the TV emanation state. They tend to be very grey and blank and difficulty thinking, foggy thoughts. Anyway, finally, the remedy I ended up with was Graphium agamemnon. Oh, I haven't put anything about. So Graphium agamemnon is a butterfly. It's the eastern. It's the. Which butterfly is that? Can you look that up? I can't remember. It's a big butterfly, amazing wings, and the thing is, the mum. Okay, the reason I got to that was because the mum said he started dressing up in girly clothes and started talking. She said he's behaving like a gay. She says he's walking, he's mincing along, and he's wearing these girly clothes and he's talking with a girly voice, And I thought, and because of the sort of the history and the whole thing of neglect, and I thought a butterfly was, this is often a butterfly territory. And so I went with, and of course they like nectar, and, so there's the sugar dysregulation. And I gave him Graphium agamemnon, and he did really well. He actually stopped all that mincing and stopped wearing girly clothes and stopped. So the mum was pleased anyway. And he started. I think the sugar aggravations were improved. So he became. I wouldn't say he was perfect, but he came out of that state, and it was quite. I would say it was quite good. The problem I found was that the mum, she would come and say, "Oh, he's doing so well now, doing so well," and then the next couple of days, "Oh, it's an absolute disaster," and I never really knew whether, because I didn't always see the kid, never really knew whether it was just her kind of projecting her own kind of unhappiness onto them, or because it just changed so radically from being really good then to being suddenly like a complete disaster area. I don't know why I bother with homeopathy. I've got nothing since, that sort of thing. That's why I had to let it go in the end, because I just felt I was getting confused about what is really going on here,
I think I had a family the mother was actually very dysregulated and very well herself. And I think you always wanted to treat the parent first.
Well, I was treating the mum as well, but still, it was difficult. It was very difficult. I mean, in a way, I think the situation, living in this close community where you haven't got enough space, and homeschooled and all inbred, it's all kind of I think that's part of the problem.
I think it was probably there was the one remedy that was bouncing off each other that
Maybe.
actually dispersed them into different entities rather than the mishmash of
Yeah. So that's Freddie. Ruby. I did feel I got somewhere with Ruby. 16, homeschooled last 6 years, previously bullied at school, like about her weight. Very shy, like she would sit next to her mum, and she's a very pretty girl, but she would sit next to her mum, and you know, if I asked her a question, she'd have to look to her mum to answer for her. She's 16, and she was still asking her mum to answer for her. Would act like animals originally, instead of speaking. Intense fear of people. Fears of falling, heights, muggers, rapists, spiders, terriers and horses. Needs a trusted adult nearby. Very fast labour, mother angry during birth, early bonding difficulties. She loves art. She kind of showed me some of her art, and it was cartoon style. She's obsessed with foxes. There's always a temptation when you get something like that to go, oh, maybe she's fox. You know, but fox doesn't have this kind of energy, you know. Fox is suspicious. Fox does have an intense dislike of siblings. It's the most hateful of the siblings of any remedy. Might be worth making a note. Yeah? Really? Brilliant. Well, there you go. That's a freebie, okay?
Would that be more like a hate or kind of jealousy?
Jealousy and hatred, yeah. Like they could be hitting them and really, they could be violent towards them, and you know. Lives largely in her inner world. This was what I picked, this kind of floaty, dreamy quality. Invents stories, rehearses conversations in her head, spends long periods alone thinking. Says she feels 10 years old internally. I asked her what she wanted to do when she left home. Didn't know. It's like she had no concept of what she wanted to do, or responsibility was just out of the picture. She needs adult presence for security and a safe space, often with a dog. Anxious, socially avoidant, dizzy in stressful situations. Whenever there's dizziness, I do think of phase or sub-phase 3 or stage 3. That can be just a useful pointer. It may not be that, but it's worth thinking of that. Influenced by social media, briefly identified as non-binary. There's a lot of sort of neglect, confusion, dizziness, dreaminess, daydreaming. She's had sepia, calc-carb. I gave her chocolate, and I can't remember why. It's a little bit, chocolate's a bit like sepia. I gave her boron carb. Boron is third stage in the mineral table, in the elements, in the periodic table. And she did quite well on that, boron carb. I gave her lacaninum, didn't really do much. This is the remedy. Okay. Dreamy is winter, even the name. Eh? I'm not sure. Yeah, it could. I'm not sure. I don't think so, but somebody may correct me on that. Maybe someone could look it up on Google. See if it's a water plant or where it grows. So this is the write-up from. So it's 622.32.03. So you've got 2 3s there actually. They have difficulty to stay with themselves in contacts. They lose themselves when meeting people. There is often a block between them and the other person. They can easily blend with the other and lose. This is exactly the way I felt her. It's very difficult for her to stay in her own base, in contact with others. They have a lot of doubts about themselves, about their actions and their personality. They're insecure. As a child, they had a lack of confirmation. They can have been left alone or ridiculed too much to be able to be... They find it difficult to trust themselves. That's the thing. And she did really well on that, actually. She really came back to herself, and the mum said she was much better after that remedy.
It's a large shrub tree.
Sorry?
So it's a spreading, edibly large shrub tree.
Right.
And it's meant to iron. But there's no water.
No water on this one. No.
Well-drained soil. Grow in a well-drained soil.
The ones are often associated with water plants. The Salvinia we had, the first fern remedy, was a water plant that had a 621.11.1. That was a water plant. So you often look for the ones.
Sheltered position in full sun or partial shade.
Yeah.
I just have a question on how you got there. So you gave chocolate and then you gave boron card. I suppose that's similar to Marita card.
Yes, a little bit more searching, not quite as in their shell, but more, they want to sort of be out there, but they don't feel confident, so they're searching and trying, and also multiple personalities she talked about. That's another thing she talked about, being an animal, you know, she was a confusion over identity. That's often a stage 3 thing, yeah.
And so then that didn't work so well. And then you thought, I'm going to look into a plant? Or how did you
Yeah,
get
I
from
then I think I decided that she was a plant. There was a kind of sensitivity about her that said that she's more plant-like. And then I remembered, I was thinking this is lots of childlike. It's a childlike thing, so it could be a 2-2. There's a carbon series 622. She's not autistic as such, I wouldn't say, but there was confidence issues and in her own little world issues, you know, and not trusting herself. She's been bullied, neglect, you know, all those things. So the carbon series, and then the 3-2. I then obviously looked around in Cure, I actually knew this remedy. I'd actually seen a case of this, and I kind of knew, when I looked at, you know, you can look on Cure and you can find a case backing up the remedy, and you go, oh yeah, that case actually resonates with my case. You know, that's got some of the same themes that feels quite right. So it's always a chance, though. You just take a risk. You know, you're always taking risks. There's no guarantee. I just followed my intuition on this, and then that's what I'm saying to you. Train your intuition. You know, don't just go for the easy squeezing your case into a remedy, but follow perhaps and learn the maps. That's going to give you a map of where you might go. You know, so you can explore outside the well-known and trusted.
What does the first 6 mean?
The first 6. So that's the lanthanide. So all the flowering plants actually have a 6 at the beginning, and it just means that they have the potential for a kind of to be highly developed. They can have this highly developed side, but it's a potential. But normally they may not even be aware of that. However, if you go for 666, obviously they're very much, you know, about their potential. They're in their heads. They're sort of. It's all about potential and all about.
Or just because it's a flowering plant.
Yeah.
In this case,
You can normally ignore that. I don't normally I look mainly at the 2nd and 3rd digits, So the 2-2, childish. She's in. It's all about childhood and what happened in childhood and fears in childhood. And then the 3-2 is the phase 3 is this confusion. And then the 2 is, and the inside, she wants to sort of go inside herself, so that's a 2. And then the 3 again is sort of dizziness. The way she expresses that is again another 3. It's like dizziness, and you know. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's,
it does.
yeah,
Because for me, not knowing the systems, the 6 just looks a bit
yeah.
far out.
Don't worry about the 6 too much. It's not. I don't tend to look at that too much, unless you're comparing it with, you know, a thuya type plant or a, you know, one that doesn't have a 6, or a fern or a moss or something like that. Could have been a moss actually, I suppose, as well, maybe, but. And sometimes, you know, you are kind of, what I'm doing sometimes is I give that remedy and I think, yeah, that's kind of close but not close enough. You're getting, it's like warmer, cooler, warmer. You know what I mean? Like you're following your nose a little bit to feel what feels right, where is that going? Is this going in the right direction? No, we've gone right off track. So we need to rethink this. What is going on? You know, you go back to basics, if that makes sense.
Sometimes, of course, you give a remedy that is not quite the right one, but then symptoms are even more unspoken afterwards. You have that.
And yes, and then sometimes the remedy kind of brings up, brings up something. It's almost like the person's vital force is saying, no, not that. It's this, you idiot. You know, it's like it has to come out really strongly and say, no, it's, you know, and it brings out something else really strongly, and you go, okay, right, I get it. You know, and you go down a different path. So you're always led by the cases tell you whether you're being successful or not. You know, so and yeah, sometimes they're partial. It helps partially, and then you have to think. I tend to then go back to the right. What have I missed here? What is it that's not quite resonating correctly here? And then try and find something that's a bit more resonant. I think we should take a break for lunch. Let's have as it's such a lovely day, should we have like an hour and a quarter? Is that too long, or do you want that gives you time to go out, and gives me time to go out as well? And okay, and